Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with AmericanScouser.com. It's Wednesday. I got the coffee. Most awesome dad in the entire history of the world. These titles don't show up on mugs, people. Okay, you got to earn this shit. So, Gordon, you got a lot of weight. You got a lot of
I
work
guess
to do to get mugs like this.
oh, you can't even see it, but I got a Dunkin' Donuts, so it's maybe the world's worst one.
So with us today, it's a Wednesday. We have Rami, as always, our very own Egyptian king. What's going on, man?
Good morning, gentlemen. Just trying to survive, take care of my mental health after yesterday, which was a tough day for all of us.
Yeah, a lot of recovery, a lot of therapy required. That's why I wanted to kind of do a post match immediately after, but everybody was on suicide watch, so we couldn't pull that together. Also with us is one of our very own OGs. Gordo is with us. What's going on, man?
Hey, how are you guys? I like that. I think this should be the therapy session.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's feels like what is needed. So let's talk about the game. Let's try to figure out what the hell happened. I don't know, man. I don't know if I've changed, getting even older or whatever the hell is going on, but I was not as irate or angry as everyone else. And there was a lot of freaking like anger going around. I was not there. So let me ask you guys this. Obviously, it's a brutal score. I don't even know if it's the worst score or most scores are considered. Whatever it is, it was shit. Okay. Like in terms of when we look at the score. But so Rami, let's try to like do the therapy this way. If this game ends 2-2, let's say, okay, with the same play on the field, would people or I mean, I know where you're at in terms of like level of irateness from like normal to ape shit. Like where would you be?
so you're saying if the game ended
Just
2-2?
to play. I mean, if
Yeah.
you didn't know the score, you didn't
Mhm.
see the goals, you're just watching the thing and just like deleting, editing out where the goals are. If you're just looking at
Yeah.
the game, would you be as like what's your level of irateness here?
I mean, I wouldn't be as upset. I think there was a decent performance, especially in the first half, despite it being 2-2 going into halftime. I feel like there was definitely glimpses. Nunez looked really good. Salah back on the score sheet. Like our attack looked really solid. Like they were working together, cohesive. There's a lot of promising signs. I think where a lot of the frustration comes from, and it's kind of hard to ignore, but it's the fact that we were up 2-0 and then gave up 5 goals unanswered. I think that's where the frustration comes from. I'm not necessarily frustrated. I'm more just disheartened and disappointed because, yeah, those first 15 minutes were just incredible. Like we played, like probably the best we have all year. And for it to just to be such a major collapse within the same game is just so just disappointing. I can't think of another word. So if any, and the worst part is if it was 2-2, we would still have a chance in the second leg, and I think that's where people wouldn't be as upset. It's like, okay, yeah, it sucks we blew a 2-goal lead, but we can still go to Bernabeu and recover this. Right now, with the scoreline the way it is, it kind of looks like we need another miracle, Barcelona level miracle times two, essentially, because it's away. So I think that's where the frustration comes from, is the fact that we did almost have it in the bag, essentially, and just completely fell apart. And then didn't even give ourselves a chance for the second leg. I was even saying, like, it might not have been realistic, but like maybe at 3-2 or 4-2, we just kind of get compact and give ourselves a chance in the next leg. But that fifth goal kind of felt like the dagger a little bit. So yeah, I think if the score was 2-2, we could have taken a lot of promising signs and like, all right, yeah, let's work on this and this for the second leg. But with it being 5-2 and in the manner that it happened, I just think there's just so much already disappointment surrounding the season that it was kind of hard for people to be optimistic now about the second leg.
Yeah, I mean, we missed it. Alan messaged us even before we went on air. So that's like a personal American Scouser TV record over here for you, Alan. Congratulations on that. Good morning. And then Sparky Parky is with us. Good morning. He says it was embarrassing. And it was. So, Gordo, how about you? When I asked Gordon yesterday if he was like just confirming his appearance, and I quote, he said, don't know if people are gonna like what I have to say after that display, but I'm in, and I end of quotes over here. So yeah, same question to you, Gordo. Like, how do you look at it? If the score wasn't as bad, was the display, as you put it, as bad?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I like what you said, taking the play out of it, because I think really when you look at the two teams, that's probably the way you would assume that it would go. Real Madrid just completely dominating, outclassing Liverpool in every area. But 2-2 would feel almost like a win in that case, So I think if it stayed level, and like Rami said, if we get a second shot, if we can regroup, and it's 3 weeks away, so we've got plenty of time to get a couple of more good results. I think the fact that it came after 2 wins and 2 clean sheets, even though it was Everton and a 10-man Newcastle, I still think that we kind of were starting to feel like, all right, maybe we can get this thing back on track a little bit, make it a little more respectful. But man, I know that, Rami, I don't know how long you've been supporting, but I know Timuchin and I have been watching some of the darker days, and we put out, frankly, Park District teams that wouldn't have allowed 5 goals last night. That was to think that these 2 teams were in the final last year. You've got
we got Gordon freezing. Gordon is angry when the camera starts to freeze and stuff. So what does Gordo? But okay, so as we try to get Gordon back in action here, here's my thing, and I think like as you watch the game, I like where you kind of like started with that actually, because that's kind of like where I'm at. Like when you start the game after 2 wins, 2 clean sheets, you start the game more like the Liverpool we know, and over the last 4 or 5 seasons, the way we're pressing, the way we're playing. And it's looking, and then you start getting these goals. You're like, hey, they're back, baby, kind of a thing. And it kind of felt like the game wise, it kind of felt like, and their first goal is just Vinicius basically being Vinicius. That's why he's like a solid player. And we, Ali gives away the second goal. To be fair, we kind of like gifted our second goal ourselves. But if you looked at the play, if you just looked at the first half, I thought it was probably, and I think Klopp said this after the game, that it was probably our best half that I have seen us play in a while. And I think that's why it's more, we got Gordon back. So mad that you froze the screen over there. But so look, so Rami, that first half felt like I say, the good old days. And I know it ended 2-2, but it didn't feel like a 2-2. It felt like, that's when, if you ended the game there, I would have considered us unlucky to end up with that score. So if you just looked at the first half, I thought that was a pretty darn good performance.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, it just started to feel like we were playing like our old selves. And like, I remember when we went up 2-0, I was just like, for me, it was just like, okay, can we get 3 or 4? That's kind of like how we were playing. It was like, can we go 3 or 4 up in the first half against them? And so, like I said, that's probably the most disheartening thing, just the difference between the 2 halves. I'm not sure if Ancelotti just adjusted something that Klopp didn't see, or the player just kind of, I think mentally, I don't know if you guys felt this too, but I think after Ali gave up that goal, or even maybe the 3rd goal off that set piece, I feel like mentally they just weren't all there, and then you could kind of feel the nervousness in the crowd. I think all of that just played a part into it, just building into this thing that just got out of hand. Yeah, it's just frustrating. It's like, if we can play like that for 15, 20, 30 minutes, why can't we do it for the full 90? And that might be a question that needs to be asked of Klopp. It might be a question that needs to be asked of the players, if they just still have the energy levels to give that. If maybe all they have is 30 minutes, if that's the case, then I'm sorry, we need to find new players who can do it for 90 minutes. That's just the reality of the size of the club that Liverpool is. Like you said, if it had ended 2-2, I would have taken it as a win. Like you said, Gordo, if you told me before the match that it ended 5-2, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, between the way the 2 teams are right now. But for it to for it to pan out the way it did is just probably the most frustrating part. And yeah, like I said, I one of my friends called me during the game. He's like, "Oh, are you guys going to score 4 or 5 against them?" And I think he's the one who might have jinxed us, but that's kind of how it felt. Like, it kind of felt that way after 20 minutes. Like, okay, yeah, we might do something special here, but it's just so frustrating that the wheels just fell off so quickly.
Yeah, like Ali's goal, I felt like, holy shit, like this entire thing we built up the first 20 minutes, it almost like you saw it like crumble down with that second goal going in. But when the second half starts, you're like, hey, if we start the way we started the first half, that press was working. They were not able to build from the back, and they do want to build from the back. So we were constantly winning the ball in dangerous spots. It was just our regular like I say, good old fashioned way of playing. So, but I felt, Gordo, the moment that third goal went in is where it ended. It felt like, Sparky says we don't know how to hold the lead. Our defense is weak and exposed. And I think, like obviously the back line got really exposed against that fast and well counterattacking team. But the most concerning thing to me is as we were building this momentum, and then you get that 2-0, it's 2-2, but you're like, hey, we're back, baby. That 3-2 happens, and it almost felt like muscle memory for the team of the first half of the season, and they just dropped. Like they were just like, oh shit, I guess it's not happening. And I feel like that's what concerns me is the mentality of this team, the mentality monsters and stuff like that, where they would play. I think we were talking about it last week. We could be 1-0 down and be like, whatever, we're just going to score. And they played like that. And now it's like, oh shit, this is gonna go bad now. And obviously, if you play like that, it does.
Yeah, and the passing didn't help, and the crowd starts to get on you, and Anfield can be a really dangerous place to be when the chips are stacked against you. I mean, I didn't really hear it on the third goal, but that fourth goal goes in, and Anfield, you could hear a pin drop. They started getting frustrated with back passes. I think there was one where Fabinho could have easily turned. He had nobody on his back to start the play forward right after the fourth goal goes in. And he decides to kick it all the way back to Alisson. And it wasn't boos, but it was jeering. And there was that level of anxiety, and that that's on the players. I mean, it was a very, very difficult night. But yeah, the third goal just completely deflated. We don't have that energy to get ourselves back into games. It's just you kick somebody too many times and you just don't have that gear. And I think that was the real difference between the two teams is Liverpool don't have that gear anymore. The gear that they played in the first 15 minutes was max. That's us. And even if that's gear 3, that's all we got right now. We don't have a fourth gear. We don't have a fifth gear, whereas Real Madrid maybe started on the back foot, probably played a little bit more defensive. They're playing at Anfield. It's a dangerous place for any team to play. And then 2 goals down. All right, guys, let's get our stuff together. And they found that other gear. And then they found another gear. And then they found another gear. And Liverpool were still in that first gear that when we started the game. So we just don't have the legs this year. It was just a really disappointing game. Even at 4-2, I think I would have felt better. It was that 5th goal going in. Like, not only is this tie over, but we've just been washed away. 5 unanswered goals on a Tuesday night under the lights at Anfield is not a great feeling.
And that's what frustrates me the most, I think, about the game is like the heads dropped after that third goal. And after the 4th goal, we were playing like there was no second leg. So, I mean, that 5th goal, it could have been 6-7, really. I mean, I almost felt like they were like, yeah, we're good. Let's stop countering. They were doing what perhaps we should have been doing once we were at 2-0. They were doing okay, but you know what? This is a good score. Let's keep this. We're good. We'll just sit back over here is what they did, which is not something we did because it's not something we ever do. And is that the problem, Rami, that, if you don't have that gear, if they don't have those gears that Gordon is talking about, there's no plan B. So if you're not able to go like gear 4, gear 5 at all times, this system doesn't work. And if you don't have the legs for it, you got to almost admit that you don't have the legs for it and maybe make certain adjustments. But it feels like there's no plan B. This is how we play. Whatever happens, happens. And sadly, this is happening more often than what used to happen.
Right, and I think that's been one of the biggest criticisms of Klopp during his tenure, not just this year. Even when we were really good, it always felt like we didn't have a plan B. It was just our plan B was to try plan A until it worked. That's kind of how it always felt like. And so now when we don't have the players to do plan A even, you're starting to see that. Micah Richards and Jamie Carragher were talking about it yesterday. That's like, at 2-0, maybe Liverpool should have been more compact or whatever. But Jamie Carragher made the point that it's like, this is Liverpool's way. And it's like, this is Klopp's way. And if you don't have the players who can do it, then you need to find players who can do the Klopp's system. So, and I 100% agree with that. I think it's in a sense, it's kind of making excuses. You should be able to hold on to 2-0 lead regardless, or even add on to that, get a third one. If regardless of like how the game is going. But it shouldn't lead to 5 unanswered goals. You know what I mean? It's those two things I feel like are unrelated. It's you just I feel like you said, they just kind of crumbled mentally, and that's probably the most concerning thing, because you can train all week and you can watch video and you can do this and that, but if the players aren't there mentally, or they're not motivated, or they're not committed, that's a very dangerous slippery slope, and it's hard to get out of that. You know, they feel like they keep hearing the same words over and over and all of that, and it just like it gets very dangerous after a while. So that's probably, like I said, the most concerning part to me. You know, the performances defensively, we can blame Allison or Joe Gomez or whatever, but at the end of the day, it was a collective thing, that mentality. And so that's probably the most concerning thing for me. And like you said, we didn't really have a plan B. We just kind of kept trying plan A, and that used to be able to work, but now it's not realistic anymore.
Yeah, Sparky Pikey says other teams have learned to stop plan A and then wait until we're exposed and pounce. And it's like, yeah, because really, realistically, there's no way you can do that plan A for 90 minutes. There's just no way. And even in the past, we really did not do it. You know, like once we got the lead, we would kind of like do this control thing. We would move the ball around. We would close out games just by controlling the pace of the game. But it feels like we're not now, because we don't have that confidence to stop and say, okay, it's control time. We're like, this is working. We just got to keep going. And you don't have the legs. But what I don't understand then, Gordon, is, I mean, this has to go, you know, anything you say about Klopp, people just go up in arms because somehow he's the only one that's not touchable. It's somehow, now everybody was asking yesterday for oil money. I don't care if you have oil money, because I don't know, like, you know, Rami is saying about like getting players that work. But at the same time, as a coach, you got to be able to look at what the ingredients you have. You look at what the hell is in the kitchen before you decide what to make. You don't start making the food and then be like, oh shit, we don't have that. Oh well, you know, and they just keep fucking stirring. And it feels like that's what we're doing right now.
Hey, that is 100% what's going on. I mean, thinking back before, you know, all the success that we've had, Klopp's first couple of seasons, I always felt that his substitutions were always like, what the fuck are you doing at this moment? Like, why this player on right now in this moment? And that's a little bit of what I'm seeing. I know that he prides himself in surrounding, you know, he's a great man manager, but beyond that, I think he really needs those guys around him, the tactical guys that analyze after the game, the throwing coach that we got, all those pieces. He's really good at that, making a team. And I think he's lost so many of those pieces. He doesn't have that strong army behind him as he did anymore. And then he's got a team that's basically gassed out from the last 5 years of basically pedal to the metal. And we just can't, we don't have the bounce back power that we did. But he does seem like one of the managers that's just so reluctant to try something spectacularly new. And I mean, really the problem is we're getting overrun in midfield. You know, Virgil van Dijk's a great center back, but when he's getting attacked 15, 16 times a game instead of 5, you're statistically likely to let more guys go. Joe Gomez is definitely not up to the task. I mean, I think a lot of us were hoping when he was younger, you know, when guys are younger, you give him passes, you know, he'll learn, he'll start figuring those situations out. I don't think he's developed into the player that we hoped he was. He's definitely got to go. But then Robertson and Trent for one is not the best defender. And he's also always played at such a very high line. But we were afforded, because we had such a stalwart midfield and Mane tracked back like nobody's business, those weaknesses were never really exposed because Trent didn't have to track back after making a lung-busting run because we'd win the ball back in midfield. And now there's all these holes all over the place because we don't have the front three that we used to. We definitely don't have the midfield that we used to. I mean, when you have Fabinho and Henderson in the middle of the park and your best player for the last month has been a 12-year-old, there's something off, you know. It's just not working. And that's nothing against those guys. It's just, you know, not that it's time for them to move on, but there's something mentally wrong with a lot of the players, and the more that those weaknesses are exposed, it just seems like we're being pushed out into the firing line every day. And Klopp's like, well, it didn't work yesterday, but it's going to work today. And it's like, well, let's maybe we could try something new. Maybe, I mean, like 5-2. Let's do like a 4-4-2 or something. Let's just try it. I mean, can it get worse than 5-2 against Real Madrid on Tuesday night in the Champions League? I don't know.
Like, he's the kind of guy that it's just like, if you haven't practiced the perfection, we're not doing it. Which, I mean, I respect and understand that, but you got to be able to, I mean, adjust. They clearly adjusted at halftime because we were not able to do the things we did in the first half. And we never, well, when that happens, because there is no plan B, I feel like we can't counter back to that. You're like, oh, really? I see your move and I raise you this or anything like that. We can't. And honestly, I mean, you look at the lineup yesterday. I mean, shit, you can look at the lineup any given time. And it's always been like this in some ways, right? You look at the lineup in our defensive back four, you're like Van Dijk and Robo or Gomez and Trent. It's a freaking no-brainer to any manager that you ask which side you're going to attack. I mean, I'm trying to think now. Did they even ever come from the other side? Like, I can't visualize an attack they're built from Robertson's side. I really can't right now. I'm sure there were times, but it felt like, I mean, obviously they focused on Vinicius anyway, but I mean, they just kept coming from that side. And the fact that we never adjusted it and let him do it over and over again just kills me. And I understand we shoot the backs up, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, like what you're saying, I mean, it used to work. And in the first half, like, you listen to Klopp after the game, and I understand he has to try to find positives and not be like, oh, we're shit, we got to do something else. And I don't know what it is. Off to the kitchen I go. But, he was focusing on the first half and saying, you got to take that as so we can do it. But don't you think, Rami, then at the same time say, if you're in that locker room and he's selling you that, right? We've all been in areas where your coach, your boss is trying to sell you some shit, right? And everybody acts like they're buying it because you don't want to be the guy to say that makes no fucking sense in the back of the room. But isn't everybody else in the room saying, but yeah, that's the problem. We can't do it for 90 minutes.
Yeah, 100%. And that's also a concern. If Klopp's messaging is starting to get old and the players are just starting to get numb to it, that's very hard to recover from. I don't know how else to put it. I want to clarify something I said earlier. It's about like getting players who can play Klopp's system. I'm not saying we need a brand new 11 or even we need to make signings. It just, we need to start playing players off of merit and what they do on the pitch, not because of their names or who they are or whatever. For example, like yesterday, we bring on Milner when we needed 3 goals. I feel like that was one of those substitutions that's like, yeah, it's good. He's experienced. He's a great servant for the club, but we need 3 goals. Why are we bringing on a 38-year-old to play, in midfield? Just certain things like that where it's like, it's not about necessarily bringing in Jude Bellingham or Caicedo or Enzo Fernandez or anything like that. It just kind of, like you said, making most of the ingredients that you do have. And you kind of see it. We did it with Bajetic. He came in and stepped in and did a job, but it just like when the messaging gets old, like you mentioned, and the players just aren't responding to the same things, you gotta give them a jolt to the system. And I don't know how you do that. Thankfully, I'm not a professional soccer coach, but yeah, I don't know how you do that. It's tough, but I do think that it is. I do think the messaging is getting old, and the players are starting to get sick and tired of hearing the same things, every game. And honestly, I'm getting sick and tired of hearing Klopp go into the press and say the same things after every match. You want to see something different. I hate to use a basketball example, but Red Auerbach, legendary Celtics coach, he before every season would throw out last season's playbook and drop a whole new one based off the players that they had for that season. Even if last season's playbook was the best he's ever made or whatever, he would just cater it to whatever the players he had, the personnel that he had, and they won a ton of championships and Coach of the Year awards and all of that. So it goes to show that it's like you mentioned earlier. I think it was a perfect example. It's you got to work with the ingredients that you have, and you can't just try to concoct something that doesn't exist. So I don't know. That's probably a big frustration. Like you said, Klopp is always excused in these conversations, and I'm not saying it's Klopp out or anything, but it's time we have the conversation that maybe we do need to try something different with Klopp. Just tell him like, hey, I don't say your job is on the line here, but it's time this isn't acceptable. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, Charlie says, okay, big time ass kicking, but not the end of the world. And I think, like I say, that's where I'm at. When the game ended, everybody was so furious. And I was like, I don't know. I'm like in a different state of mind. Maybe in like the back of my head, I've already kind of like taken the season as a wash, or I don't know. You see some other stuff. I mean, being from Turkey and seeing all that kind of stuff, maybe kind of like made me numb to the sports world. At the same time, there's probably a factor of that as well. But I like, I was not as upset or angry, and I kind of like Charlie was saying. I was like, well, this is not the end of the world. I mean, obviously, I mean, realistically, I think we got teased and hustled over the last couple of weeks. Like Gordon, like you were saying, we got those 2 wins, 2 clean sheets. We're like, ooh, maybe we'll be champion. And then it starts 2-0. You're like, Champions League and top four, you know. So it's like kind of got teased. Whereas 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, if I said, you know, like kind of like you're saying, Gordon, like Real Madrid, you'd be like, that's gonna. I mean, we were all like, holy shit, we're gonna get our ass kicked by Real when we were looking at the back line and stuff. And maybe the last 2 weeks were fake after all, but at the same time, I understand. Let's play devil's advocate here, Gordon. I mean, Klopp is not going to come out and say, yeah, everything we've been doing over the last 5 years, but that shit ain't working now, so we got to do something different. I realize he's going to keep harping on the positive. What do you think will change, or what would you like to see change? You know, like Rami brought up about like changing these freaking substitution patterns that frankly, like you said, has never made sense to me or has always been late. Like we've been up 3-0 and we start making substitutions in the 80th minute and stuff like that. And then complain about not having 5 subs, even though we never used the 3 and stuff like that. But what kind of changes, I guess, would you want to see after that?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I honestly just think that it just needs to be a flash in the pan, just something totally different, and see if it works and see what. I mean, for one, I think the biggest issue, and I think everybody watching, Liverpool fan or not, can tell you that the back four need more cover in front of them. The problem is because we played that 3 midfield system for so long, we just don't have the depth of midfielders because we haven't bought them. So there is nothing. I don't know if there is anything we could do. I mean, you could drop somebody back. I mean, I think one of the hardest things is we got rid of Jorginho and we never replaced him. Gini Wijnaldum, excuse me. We never replaced him. We got rid of Mane, who could probably slot into like a right wing, left wing midfielder, and we didn't really replace him because I don't think Gakpo or Nunez could play midfielder. I just wouldn't trust them to track back. They're just big boys that like to receive the ball either in a through ball or to their feet with their back to goal. They're not the players that you want covering Trent and Robbo. But we've got to do something to shore up the back. I don't know if we just play, maybe 3 up front in a sweeper type situation with like Milner or something. But it's ridiculous to think that like, oh, Milner is the guy that we're going to bring in here to solve our problems. Like, I'm trying to think, who could you do? Because on any given day, you've got Fabinho at his best would be perfect for that role, but he just is not. I don't know what is going on, and it could be a personal issue going on at home or something, but his head is just not there, and to put him in front of it is just asking for more problems. It's tough to say what I would like to see change, but it's got to, even honestly, if they just threw out a 4-4-2 or just some other formation, that would be enough for me. It's like, all right, at least we're trying something. It may not work and it may be thrown in our face, but teams have figured us out, and we don't have the level of energy to burst through the teams figuring us out, because we always just overran them. Eventually we would wear the teams down because we played the same intensity in the first minute as we played in the 90th minute, and that has been Klopp's motto since day one. And eventually you break a team down. You get a lucky break, you get a goal, you overpower them with your skill and your tenacity, and just most teams cannot handle a 90-minute pressure like that. But right now we couldn't even do 20 minutes of pressure last night. So something has to change. And I'd just like to see something different. And that would be enough for me. Even if we end up losing 3-0 again, I would just like to, well, at least we're trying something different. Because I think like smashing the square peg in a round hole isn't working anymore.
Yeah, Sparky says Bobby used to be our fourth mid, and I think that's a good point. I think that's what's really missing there. And I thought, when I saw the beginning of the game, and Alan says there has to be a clear out. When I saw the beginning of the game, the way we pressed and stuff like that, I was like, wow, okay, we can do this. And you saw Nunez defending all the way back and stuff like that. You were like, hey, maybe we can play how we used to play with these guys. They were really good signs. I even put on the Discord channel that, and then we had some hot discussions afterwards on the Discord channel, because obviously as the scoreline gets more and more miserable, so do the people. And we were talking about, how these tire legs are. By the way, if you're not on the Discord channel, there's no reason for you not to be. Let me shoot a link over here as an invite. Hop on, and you can join these conversations throughout the day, anytime, 24/7. You can be in combined in Liverpool misery with us. But we were talking about tire legs, and I know Yali is actually the one who brought up well, maybe we should have some rotation. I think that's where the problem is I don't even see any kind of rotation that you could do, bar putting Milner in there, to be able to still get I mean, this is our best midfield, so we're just in terms of being industrious, winning the ball, running, closing gaps and stuff like that. So now we have to drag these three from point A to point B constantly and carry them to the next pitch and drop them off in midfield so they can hopefully run. And I don't see how you can rotate Rami and still get the same result, because you can't take Fabinho out. Who are you going to put there? The only guy that you can probably put there is Bajcetic and Henderson, who's already out there. So there is not a lot of pieces that you can replace from those three.
Yeah, conventional wisdom would tell you play on Saturday, you play again on Tuesday. You needed to rotate some pieces. With Tuesday's game being so big, it was kind of hard, like you said, to find somebody even to play in the lineup that would have been competent. I can't think of another word. But I think the issue was on Saturday. I think the subs just came way too late. Knowing we had a game on Tuesday, and we were up 2-0 against Newcastle, I think we could have taken some more chances with the subs just to give that rotation. Like you always mentioned, we always harp on about, we need 5 subs and we need this and we need that. But when it comes time to use them, we don't. We haven't seen Fabio Carvalho since, I don't remember when. I think since before the World Cup. That would have been a good game against Newcastle. Throw him in. Yeah, Newcastle were starting to come into the game a little bit, but we're up 2-0 and they're down a man. Give Carvalho some minutes, let him build some confidence, and you can rotate somebody out and save their legs for Tuesday. The issue is we played 11 men on Saturday who essentially had to play 90 minutes twice in a few days, and you can see it. I think Henderson was one of the main. Not culprits, but just I guess victims of that. He looked incredible first 20 minutes. And I think that's where a lot of the intensity came from, was Henderson. He led the press. He was doing his job well. He was being a vocal leader. And I think for him, just the legs fell off after maybe 20, 30 minutes. And you could see the rest of the game, he was just kind of catching up, just chasing shadows the rest of the match.
Yes.
And I feel like he's kind of been that guy all year where it's like if he's on it, then yeah, the rest of the squad will be on it. But once he starts to fade away, we don't have anybody else who steps up and takes that role. So yeah, I think we had an opportunity a little bit to being up 2-0 with a man down on Saturday to rotate a bit more. But like you said, we don't have enough options to even put 4 or 5 new guys in again. I'm sure Saturday against Crystal Palace, we'll probably see the same lineup we saw yesterday and on Saturday. Which is just the nature of the squad right now. So it is frustrating. It's frustrating when we let it get to this point, if we're being honest, but that's a different conversation. But it just, I don't know. I think there's a lot that could have been done differently, and it's easier to say in hindsight what could have been done differently, but it's not like we haven't been asking for these things all season. It's just that this now has been, I guess the culmination of it, losing 5-2 to Madrid.
Yeah, I think every once in a while you just get that reminder, sadly, of, exact, and this is why kind of an ordeal. Sparky says, now I know life is bad when you're telling me Hando is in our top 3 midfielders. I said this last week. I mean, I know I'm a huge Hando fan, and I'm kind of like a Hando apologist for the most part. But I've said this before. This midfield goes exactly like Rami was saying. This midfield goes as far as Hando can take him right now. And that's probably the biggest problem, because we have someone who can't do it for 90 minutes anymore, trying to kind of carry our midfield. When Hando is not there, Mo looks 10 times better when Hendo is there. Trent looks more like he can defend when Hendo is out there. And that's, I think, the main problem is when Hendo is not out there, or Hendo is not the 100% Hendo, it does not work. And that's when you have all those holes. And that's when you started after the 25th, 30th minutes, That's when they kept coming. And there's another. Henderson is up there in age. You don't see it from his energy levels when he's on his game, but he's up there in age. He's not going to be able to constantly track back Vinicius all freaking game with Vinicius's pace and his youth and energy and stuff like that. So, like I say, it goes back to we're trying to make a dish where we don't have the ingredients for it. But so let's finish with this, because somebody was, in the Discord channel, we were talking about oh, this is just like the Barcelona thing. To me, it's not even close. And I'll personally admit it, I didn't have a whole lot of hope going into the second matchup of Barcelona either, in terms of getting a 4-0. I remember right when the game was starting, my brother texted me, and we were texting back and forth on WhatsApp, and I was like, man, I just want us to go out and win, because we deserved to win in the first game. I just want us to go out and win. If it happens, it happens. But I highly doubt it was my feeling going into that Barcelona game. So if I didn't have as much trust, if you will, with that team at home after the way they played in Barcelona, where they probably deserved a win, I sure really don't have a lot of hope going to Bernabeu, this team, and winning with a 3-goal margin to take it into overtime or penalties. Gordon, how much belief do you have left in this matchup, if any?
I think what we could do is win 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, whatever it is. Win, get some level of belief back into the team, sort of wipe the slate, because if you think one win, whatever, we can move on. I don't think anyone thinks we're going to move on. But I think the key thing in that Barcelona matchup, like you pointed out, we probably did not deserve to lose that Barcelona game. We were really good. I think it was Messi that scored the last goal very late in the game, and that one was, oh man, everything we gave, and that probably pushed it too far out of our reach, but we didn't deserve that result. It was an unfair scoreline, I feel like. And we were coming back to Anfield.
Yes.
And I think even before that game, Klopp basically just told the players, just win. Just go out there, enjoy being in front of your own fans, and just win this game. I think that's all we can do. This team, the way that we were outplayed and outclassed, I don't think we have a shot. If we do, it would be one of the greatest comebacks of all time. I think it's even better than that. I think it rivals Istanbul because of just how poor we were in the first game. But one of the things that I was thinking about last night too was, if we do come back from this, is it starting to take away from those great things? Do we always just expect coming back from these things? Istanbul. It's there's only so much before it gets 4-0. We'll win 5-0 in the next leg. It's just keep Istanbul as sacred as it is, and keep the Barcelona game as sacred as it is. I almost don't want to come back, because then it's Liverpool are just expected to 4-0, 5-0 victories in the second leg. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, they're watching, they're this is the greatest Liverpool comeback ever, and the team is challenge accepted. We'll lose 4-0 to see if we can come back. Rami, where is your belief at?
Yeah, I don't have a ton of optimism. I have a little bit, just because I'm a supporter, and anything is possible in sports.
Yeah.
But it will take a miracle. Like you mentioned, playing at Anfield the first leg, we're going to Bernabeu next time. That's being away is a huge disadvantage. We already played terrible away. I think we've won 2 away games this season. So that's already a disadvantage. And like you mentioned with the Barcelona tie, it was a completely different scenario. We were a much better team in the first leg, and then coming home, there's a bit of belief. I think we had beaten Newcastle, if I believe, the match before, and off a Divock Origi last-minute header. So it's good feelings and all this stuff. Right now, it's nothing like that. And, it's not outside the realm of possibility that, we go there and score 3 or 4 goals, but the issue is not conceding 3 or 4 goals as well. That's what really concerns me. I think the front line is starting to play together. You can see the chemistry between Nunez and Salah and Gakpo starting to grow, and we're getting Jota and Firmino back. But that's not the issue. We've been fine scoring goals. The issue is, like we mentioned, keeping clean sheets and, not giving up 5 to Madrid. So, like I said, I'm slightly not even optimistic. I'm just hoping for a miracle, but I'm realistic in that, it's probably unlikely.
Yeah, I can definitely see us scoring there. I just don't see us keeping a clean sheet there. This is basically the ideal scenario. Even a 1-goal lead would have been an ideal. Even if the game ended 3-2, it would have been an ideal scenario for Real to be we'll just sit and hit him on the counter. And they have the people to hit us on the counter with. I mean, they had the finishing and they have the speed. So I just feel like, you know, if we play too open and go at it like 4-3-0, it could be bad too. But yeah, I mean, that's why, you know, like that's the thing. These comebacks, Gordon, like give you the feeling that they're like, oh, maybe you never know. And then, you know, like if they get the first goal and stuff like that, I can kind of see that. You know, Sparky says, and I think like Boaz said this in the Discord channel yesterday, and then he backtracked right away. But playing like the U21 in the second line, rest in the squad, I don't think you can do that when you're trying to build confidence and momentum. You can't tell this team, you guys lost this round already, kind of a deal. Will you see more rotation maybe? Thinking of the Premier League and stuff, I can perhaps see that, but there's no way in hell you're gonna like put out the backups there and tell this team, yeah, you guys are not gonna go and fight for it, because that's basically telling them that they're never gonna come back from anything. I don't think that's a message that Klopp can send. Well, gentlemen, on that note, we'll end the therapy session over here. I'll send your guys invoices via email. The cheapest therapy that you guys can get here on American Scouser TV. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks to all those commenting and stuff. I threw the Discord channel link in there. Hop on, and you can kind of have these conversations with us 24/7. And then I will be back on Friday, but even before me, Thursday nights. The fantasy nerds will be here, Gally and Mateusz. But even before that, the Thursday night podcast. I think Jamie's back in action this week, so it might be Maka, Jamie, and Trevor and his death plant in the background joining us this Thursday. Have a great Wednesday hump day going over here. Continue the therapy session amongst yourselves, and we'll see you guys then. Take care.